Hey guys, so today's video is, well, from what I've written down, looks relatively long, so I'm going to try get through it at a reasonable pace. So that's as much of an intro as you're getting. I'm just going to start into it. So the story is not like the happiest. It has happy notes in there, but like I just want to mainly focus on that it's a story of overcoming what was once thought impossible and moving forward into a better reality and like a better quality of life. So without further ado, I present to you the original epidemic, HIV. So for those who don't know, I want to quickly let you know that HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus, which is what develops into AIDS, which stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Disease Syndrome. I'm going to talk about the origins of where it came from. As we know it started, the actual strain we know from 1920s. It was discovered in a West African, I think it's a country called Kinshasa.
Update: it is not a country, it is the capital of a country named Dominican Republic of the Congo.
Where hunters were hunting a group of chimpanzees that carried S.I.V. That stands for Symbiont Immunodeficiency Virus. But as you can imagine, the IV would just rely on what species it was carried by, so take with that you will. So I'm going to let you know, I have it later in my notes, but I'm just going to reference it now because it makes no sense. It was only discovered in the 90s that SIV and HIV had near identical strains. The 1920s SIV that was found is what's believed to be what started the HIV virus essentially spreading. Okay, so a little bit of time skips forward and we cut to 1959. I believe. 1959, yes. Where the first actual case was reported. And again, it was in the same place, Kinshasa, and it has been believed to have been spreading, even though it was only discovered in the chimpanzees in 1920s, or to have dated back to then. It's believed that it only started spreading as HIV in 1937, which is when I believe sex trade started opening up, as well as general transmitting, like people going in and out of the country essentially. I do want to let you know though that I have linked, well, I've linked all my sources below, but the first link will be the one that I use mainly. Okay, so I'm skipping a bit, well, quite a bit ahead. There's not much reported in between these times, I don't believe, but I'm skipping to 1980s. Now, I think we all know why, but if you do not know why, then I'm about to tell you why.
Why?
The cases started picking up out of nowhere in North America. It didn't have a name yet, I don't believe, so when it first started coming out, all the cases were found in gay men, so the rest of the population just called it the gay disease or many variations of that. I googled some headlines from like newspapers and whatnot, and I'll throw some up as I'm talking, but it's kind of gross that, you know, network publications were broadcasting this sort of stuff and we're just making it worse than it already was. But yeah, didn't have a name for it. It was only found in gay men, so people decided to take it and run with it. It wasn't until a year later that scientists are finding that it's found in people other than people who are gay. It took, you know, straight people to convince people that it's worth researching, which was really annoying, but eventually they did. 1982, they give it a name. So they have, I don't know if they must have had HIV by now, but they have given a name to AIDS now, which they didn't have a name until now, I don't believe, or they didn't tie the two connections together. It wasn't even until the year later, 1983, that they had compared the links between HIV and AIDS. So okay, it has been 5 years since like they had connected HIV and AIDS back in 1983. The year is now 1987. Hold on, that's 4 years. Silly goose. It's 1987, and they are going through a few, like, you know, testing stuff to figure it out. They find a drug called AZT, I believe, which was an old failed cancer cure. But again, this wasn't a cure, this was just something that we're finding that was fighting against the HIV virus. Very, very flat news. It's now the early 90s, and now HIV/AIDS has been discovered to be the #1 cause of death. So people are more like, it's crazy that if you look at the publications around then, it goes from focusing on the gay headline to focusing on, oh, no one's safe. And then when it's like the #1 cause of death, when it's affecting people that are not the minority group, a lot of like, from a few news publications I saw, there was like bigger stream people talking about it. And more, I would say, defense to gay people because they figured out that it clearly did not only affect them. That is in the early 90s. It's not until 1995, which is when the antiretroviral drug is created, and this is just like an early stage version of the drug. So they were invented in they weren't invented. They were found to combat HIV in 1995. That is essentially the story of, you know, the origins. I know it's a bit sloppy. Again, you can read the article if you are truly interested, but that's the generalization of it. I'm going to talk about more of the, you know, the homage to the gay men and the people that went through so much. So if you're not too bothered, which I'm very disheartened if you leave now after I've just told you the educational part, because half of the story is what gay men went through and what people who had HIV were going through. So, and this bit I don't have too much here, so bear with. This part is me talking about, you know, the homophobia and discrimination that was going on at the time and what people went through. So homophobia has been a thing since the existence of gay people. There's always just been someone to be butthurt about it. However, it took a climax in the 80s with the epidemic rising. Now, when it first came out and it was just being shown that it was only in straight people, or publications, didn't really, for most of what I could see, they were like avoided and obviously extremely homophobic and judgmental, but there was not much physical violence, I should say. I mean, there probably still was, but like from what I could see. And there's a lot of things that were not reported on behalf of gay men. It was mainly just like an interview with a straight person being scared of gay people and like justifying why they were scared when really it was just always homophobia. But the homophobia truly started picking up when straight people were getting HIV. And I say straight in quote marks because if it's only amongst gay men, and this isn't me theorizing, this is what happened. Lots of straight men stepped out and had secret affairs with gay men, and then they would in turn give it to their wives, and then, well, girlfriends, you know, whoever. But if they were in a relationship with a woman and they had sex with the woman, and if the woman had a child and she was breastfeeding, this is a lot of ifs, but you know, it's just from one thing, from a guy stepping out. If she was breastfeeding, she would be transferring HIV to the child too. This is all just from one person stepping out. But again, it didn't peak, the homophobia didn't peak until now because as you can notice, well, as you can probably guess, a lot of straight people were getting like insecure. I don't even know the proper word for it, but you know, if it's only a gay disease and these, you know, straight men start picking it up, it looks shady. And naturally, I think in every part of history, straight men's like reaction to them being exposed is just to, you know, harass the problem, beat it up or something. There was almost 90 reported deaths due to like homophobic hate crimes, and barely any of them were covered. I found 5. There was probably a few covered in local newspapers, but of, you know, 90 deaths associated with that is murder, I only found 5 cases online. As well as it is confirmed that 30 of those 90 cases, well, it was 88 cases, but 30 of those cases were never solved. I do think it's always important to know how far we've come, you know, in comparison to both LGBT rights as well as, you know, medical advancements. I do want to focus now. I keep saying focus, but I want to show you like even though everything that was going on, everything that was going against them, I want to show you some like happy times of like the icons, the gay icons that were, you know, thriving in the 80s. And okay, I do want to quickly point out, HIV did exist before the 80s, but it had only been picked up in the 80s. So it was at the end of the 70s. Thank you. So, okay, I'm just going to show you some light, shed some light on some, you know, beautiful people, some beautiful scenery of everything that was going on, everything going against them, and somehow they still managed to live through it. And I did have this written down, but it means, like, I absolutely mean it. I think gay men who experienced and lived through the 80s, especially with those who had HIV, have my absolute heart. Like, I just, yeah. It feels like I should salute you, but, you know, I think people would be triggered, but you have my heart. And I hope you're living your best life today. So, I do plan on putting a little video in afterwards, but this will be the last bit from me. I just wanted to cover this story, pay some homage. I want to do these videos where someone can take something away from it and be just even a little bit educated. That would be nice. So, from me, this is goodbye. I hope you stick around for these maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to look at some icons. My next video should be a hormone update, which is exciting. And again, if you have any ideas you want me to do, let me know. And then I'll see you in the next one. Bye.